All right. Well, since it's just the cool kids now, if you want to keep talking about the other
Oh,
two,
the cool kids club. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Like, do you have any other legendaries you want to discuss real quick, or do you just also want to jump into budget brewery?
I'll just briefly mention the last one because why not? Uh,
Go for
Narset.
it. I've,
Uh,
I've got a list too, so don't worry. I'm with you.
I picked out Narset Enlightened Exile as the last one. It's
Oh yeah.
one blue, red, white. Human monk legendary creature. It says creatures you control a prowess. I don't super care about that, but uh, whatever
Oh,
Narset.
I'd have to disagree. I'm going to be disagreeing with you on that part, but go ahead and continue.
Let's see. Whenever Narset attacks, exile target creature non exile target non creature non land. So basically, instant sorcery, artifact, enchantment. With mana
Hmm.
value less than Narset's power, and copy it. Any way to like play cards again from your graveyard if they got destroyed, like if it's an artifact or enchantment, it's you're gonna copy it and you will get the copy. Like it'll just stay around. So it's pretty good because it gives you recursion in a color that like yeah, color pie that's not super amazing at that. So if people do
Right.
deal with your
Yeah.
stuff, you're like, just kidding, I get to do this all over again. And if it's
Hmm.
instants and sorceries, like there's so many powerful blue and red instant sorceries that you can recast. So yeah, I think it's just this is just a really solid like spellslinger commander.
Yeah, right. And I feel like something like this can be very incredible in a sort of go wide strategy where you are taking advantage of that first line of text on her that says your creatures have prowess, which is on herself as well, by the way. It's worded sort of weird. Like sometimes on these kind of card abilities, they'll give the card itself that is granting that ability the same ability as well. So like something like a one that comes to mind is like Surak as an example, is a deck that I play. He states on the card that he has trample and then he gives other creatures trample. I don't know why they format it differently from time to time, but a card like this, it reads like she herself has prowess as well. So that's where you can start spell slinging in your main phase to boost her own power so that when you're able to move to combat, you're boosted it up high enough that you could pretty much do a flashback of whatever you like.
This would be this would be a pretty good storm commander because
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
just because you could cast your storm cards in main phase one, move to attacks main phase two, storm, and just win
People
the game.
have people have always wanted a very popular card since it was originally printed from Fate Reforged. And it has actually just come back recently in March of the Machine, Monastery Mentor. People have really wanted that kind of card to be a legendary, and I feel like this is this is for those people, right? If you love the ability of popping out dorks and getting their power and toughness is ridiculously big using the prowess as a keyword, this is the perfect commander for that. Cause it never usually gets printed too often. There was just a card in March of the Machine that had it, but prowess stacks. So if you're playing cards that have, uh, if you're playing cards that already have prowess, Narset giving them prowess, that's a double trigger. Any non-creature will boost them each up. So this is probably super fun as your prowess tribal deck.
That
Doing, doing
actually,
so,
yeah, you're right for sure. That could be really
yeah,
interesting. Also, that makes something I'm thinking about. That makes Spellslinger stronger just as a whole because I think the downside of Spellslinger is you're not playing lots of creatures, so your board state is just you're just open to get walloped by anyone playing a decent amount of creatures and having
right.
even like three creatures that all have prowess on them that all become like a 10/10 after one of your turns. Like
Right. Can you imagine just like you've maybe in a turn prior, you've done like an instant or sorcery that just like, I don't know, maybe with like a Talrand in play, pops out, you maybe have like 2 Drake tokens, why not? Let's just say you're just sitting on 2 of those, and somebody goes to combat at you, and on your turn you go, oh, I don't know, let's do oft, let's do ponder, and then let's do a swords to plowshares. Suddenly your 2/2s are now 5/5s that they're blocking whatever you want, and you just put card advantage into your hand. This is absolutely silly as a spellslinger control shell.
Also, this is Feather, the redeemed colors. So if you wanted to play a bunch of your like cantrippy stuff onto Feather, like you could easily get Narset up to like a 12/12 in a turn. That would be kind of crazy. So, and then you can just cast whatever you want out of your graveyard. This is a cooler. I'm glad I picked this. This is you're talking me into it more than I had already talked myself into it. So this is cool.
I would, if you would allow me the permission, I would love to try to talk you even heavier into Ob Nixilis, Captive Kingpin.
Go for it.
May I? All right. This is one for me that I know I had said that I looked through the legendary creatures in regards to what I already own. This is not one of those cards. This is something that it would be built in a direction that I have no knowledge of ever building before, but I would be like, I talked myself into thinking like, oh man, this kind of build is incredibly silly. Let me tell you about Ob real fast. He is 2 black and a red for a legendary demon. He's a 4/3 with flying and trample. Whenever one or more opponents each lose 1 life exactly, put a +1/+1 counter on Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin. Exile the top card of your library. Until your next end step, you may play that card. So, that last sort of line on it is something we've seen from Red do a bunch of times, typically referred to as impulse draw. Sending something to exile, getting a delayed trigger to be able to cast it. That's super Red. We've seen that a bunch of times. What we have not ever really seen before is something that cares about the specific amount of damage that someone is dealing. The only other kind of card recently that only really cared about the amount of damage being dealt either out or front was from the most recent Jumpstart, like the main one, called Auntie Blight, Bad Influence. She cared about hitting yourself specifically for damage at a time, but that's past the point of this one. Ob Nixilis here really cares about you doing little pain damage over time, because every trigger that you get on that, he's growing in power to the point where, like, let me just mana bars. I'm just straight up going with mana bars here. Land punishing tax effects, right? Your mana barbs and burning earth, things like that. The kind of cards that do slow incremental pain damage for opponents that cast spells or tap lands or do activated abilities. If you start cascading those together, they are all individual triggers that Ob will see. You'd be letting an opponent go to untap step with, say, mana barbs out in play. Any land they tap is going to individually trigger Ob Nixilis.
Wow.
And you do Ob Nixilis, you do mana barbs, you do a turn rotation, he's probably untapping with 15 to 20 counters on him already, because you're like on turn 4 or turn 5.
That's crazy. And if you could run Prosper as well in this deck if you wanted to just get, and like Keeper of Secrets. I don't know if you know what that card does, but Keeper of Secrets, every time you cast a card from exile, it deals the damage of that card to equal to its CMC to all your opponents. So even just casting the card could be win costs. That would be crazy.
Right. That sort of ability doesn't necessarily synergize with Ob itself. Ob only cares specifically about hitting 1 damage at a time, but you can still absolutely be playing those kinds of effects, capitalizing on his second line of text that is allowing you to play these impulse draw cards from exile. We've seen a whole bunch of these kind of new effects in Rakdos specifically that care about when you do X thing from exile, Prosper and in the background from Baldur's Gate, passionate archaeologist, things like that. The one that you said, keeper of secrets, things like that. Caring about casting from exile. So that's a direction you can build with this as well. I've written down on here specifically as well that if you don't want to go super hard in the super staxing and punishing sort of effects like mana barbs, you could also do this in a kind of like a pings tokens kind of deck. I'm thinking like a tokens aristocrat sort of build where you're doing the 1 damage pingers like Impact Tremors and Witty Roastmaster, paired with sacrifice clauses like Goblin Bombardment and Blood Artist, all of which are single life damage dealers. You know, Goblin Bombardment just slings for 1 damage. Blood Artist drains for 1 life. These little things, you stack them up in huge amounts of triggers at a time. Ob Nixilis is going to just out of nowhere go from 0 counters to like 15, 20, 25. And those 1 ping damages at a time, if he's your commander, you're just one-shotting people because Flying Trample is no easy task to block, especially if he's already stacked up with 20-something plus counters.
Also, there is a totally different direction you could build this. There's a ton of red creatures that whenever you play an instant or sorcery or non-creature, whatever, it depends on which one you're looking at, but they have deals 1 damage to all your opponents. And
right. Yes.
Yeah, so there is a like spell slinger version of this that you could build. Which would be crazy.
Thermo Alchemist comes to mind. Yeah. Taps to deal a damage and you have to thing untap it.
Mm-hmm. You've got Thermo Alchemist, you have Firebrand Archer, which just whenever you play an instant or sorcery just deals damage to everyone. Electrostatic Field is the same way. I'm forgetting. There's a bunch of them, so there you got options.
No, that's great. Yeah, you did a good job remembering those. Yeah.
I'm a filthy red player, so
no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, and that sort of deck strategy gets fueled by that secondary line of text that he has about being able to do the impulse draw whenever that 1/1 counter trigger happens. You are now building up your resources over the course of a turn that you're then untapping and being able to cast those instants and sorceries again, which will trigger your Thermo Alchemists and your Firebrand Archers, which then trigger Ob Nixilis and gives you more fuel for next turn. And you're right, it just cascades.
And if you
for only 4 mana to get down as well, I feel like Ob could probably stand alone as probably one of the set's best, newest legendary build-arounds, as this is something you need to answer as soon as he comes down, because if you start letting that ping damage accumulate, he's going to get way too big for you to handle.
I agree, because we've literally just in less than a minute come up with 3 different builds for this commander, and they are all really strong.
This one alone, I feel like, is one of the standout ones, apart from getting myself Karn Legacy Reforged, we're not going to talk about, but I, as a filthy artifact person, I like Karn as well. But Ob is definitely on my list of I want to try to get this card so that I can build the ping damage deck.
You could even, I don't know why I'm talking about Storm so much today, but you could do a Rakdos Storm version of this deck with Bergie.
Grape Shot?
You could Grape Shot, you could play Bergie, God of Storytelling, and the new Urbrask, who every time you play a spell, it gives you a red mana, so you could just keep going. And if you had Prosper out as well, you just make mana, draw cards, and you could storm off easily and win the game. That would be crazy. Really, that would be.
Jared, I think you're sucking me into filthy red.
Dude, it's fun. Come to the dark side. It's pretty fun.
I love it.
You should build this deck. I think that'd be awesome.